All right, let's see if we are live here so we can get this show on the road. So what we'll be talking about today are the best big man builds in 2K20. I'm going to start with the center because I'm not 100% convinced that the power forward is absolutely necessary in this game. I think it's entirely possible that you can play two centers and three guards without any penalty in this game, even after the speed nerfs. Just because the other three positions are going to carry out everything that you need speed to take care of. So that's a disclaimer. It doesn't mean that power forwards are bad in a pro-am context. I'm just saying I'm not 100% sure if they are necessary. So I'm going to start with the centers first and foremost because they are necessary. Meaning, if the other team has a 7'3 max strength, max weight center, and you don't, all information that I've gathered so far as Pro-Am goes and 3v3, is that you're possibly playing at a disadvantage. Most likely playing at a disadvantage on a consistent basis. So we're going to start with the 7-3. Well, you don't. I don't know if you 100% have to be 7-3. I've seen people succeed at 7-2 and 7-1, but I would say it seems like 7 feet is possibly too small at the highest level. Although I have seen some people run the 7-foot power forward at center and do very well. Although I don't know if there's a good reason to do that. So we're talking about 7-1 and above center position. What's up to everybody in the chat? Thank you for showing up. Can you guys hear me okay? Let me know if everything sounds good. So I can move on. Check, check. Can you guys hear me? Excellent. Okay, so we're going to move on. So I'm going to go from the top down. All right? The number one big man build in this game, like I believe 100%, I think this is 100% true, is this pie right here. And we're gonna get into why, but this build is so good that I think if you play 2K and you're not a specialist, if you just want to get in a lot of games, rep up, have fun with your friends, this is 100% the build you need to make. So the reason why, and it's a very simple number that's going to dictate all of the best versus not best builds, is 65. If you have a 65 I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong build. Ah, the glass cleaner lock. If you have a 65 3-point shot with Hall of Fame badges, you can green every single shot you make if you time it perfectly. All right? That's the cutoff, is a 65 3-point shot. We'll get into why that's important, but with a point guard with Hall of Fame dimer, you can spread the floor, all that other good stuff. But let's talk about why this build is better than the Paint Beast and the Interior Force builds. Because the 3-point shooting is the obvious thing. That's something that this build can do that they can't do. But let's talk about what those builds can do that this build supposedly shouldn't be able to do at a high level, right? It's the 90 strength pie. Vertical and strength is where you want to go with your big men builds. So the key here is we're going to go right to these defensive stats. I'm going to put up block, interior defense, and rebound. Watch what happens to. Keep in mind, we're playing with Hall of. Oh, I gotta fill everything up just for the sake of this. But we're talking about we're playing with Hall of Fame badges here. All right. You're talking about Hall of Fame badges on top of everything that we're doing right now. And I also want to address. We can address the dunk while we're here too. The standing dunk and the close shot. So this goes back to what I was saying with the guards. And to make this very clear for any builds you're making, the defensive tree blends better than every tree in this game. It loses the least amount of attributes when compared to every other character. And this is really important because because the defensive tree also has slashing built into it. So right here our standing dunk is an 85 and our close shot is an 84 at this screen. But let's go ahead and move forward and watch what happens when we go 7-3, max weight. Look at that interior defense. It's literally max. With a blended build, with a 66 at this point without maximizes the wingspan yet, the interior defense is already maximum. That's a 99 interior defense. It's literally the same. You can't get better defense than this build can already provide. It is as good of a defender as the pure defensive build, and as good of a defender as the defensive slashing build. So when you pick those builds over this build, you're giving up shooting basically for nothing. When it comes to the defensive end, you're not making any defensive sacrifice. Look at the block. The block goes up to 93. The only attribute that is favored for the pure defender is the defensive rebound. But keep in mind, and this is the most important point about this, is when it comes to defensive rebounding, yes, size is extremely important. Yes, wingspan is important. Yes, vertical is important. All of those things factor in. Badges factor in. But unlike, say, blocks and contest numbers, the rebounding part of the game is also very skill based, right? You have to have good positioning. So you can go to any high level pro-am, 3v3 pro-am, rec center gameplay, and you'll consistently see the rebound only glass cleaner get out rebounded by builds that don't only do that, because positioning matters. Those guys will miss rebounds. So this build is basically perfect in terms of what a 2K big man wants to do. And that means Hall of Fame brick wall, Hall of Fame rim protector, Hall of Fame rebound chaser, and you look at the standing dunk. It's an 89. 89 standing dunk. So let's talk about the slashing real quick, just overall as a big man. And this is conceptually when you think about the game. And I know people don't like to hear this, but this is just the truth. And this is probably the same thing for the real NBA. The number one shot you're trying to generate is a wide open, uncontested three-pointer, first and foremost, preferably in the hands of a highly rated three-point shooter. And in the case of this big man, with a 65 three ball, but with Hall of Fame badges on his end and Hall of Fame dimer, don't let that number fool you. That's 60, and it says 64 here, but keep in mind you get +4 attributes for going to 99, so it's actually 68 three ball and a 70 mid-range. A 68 three ball and a 70 mid-range. When you put Hall of Fame badges from the big on there, and you throw a Hall of Fame dimer in there, you throw a floor general in there, corner specialist, you're talking about this guy is shooting basically with a 90 from the corner. Like, that's why that shot goes in all the time, because it's the perfect shot for this character, and it's the only shot this character has to make. He can make it at a high level. So when you're generating shots in competitive play, if you can get a wide open three first and foremost to a good three-point shooter, that's the first thing you're trying to generate. The next thing you're trying to generate is a guaranteed dunk. This is when we talk about the slashing part of this build. A guaranteed dunk. If this character has a shot close at the basket on a mismatch or wide open, he's going to finish equally as much as a slashing type character. All right? And this is true for slashing across the board, really. If you're slashing with a 7-3 center in the paint, you're taking a contested shot. I'm not saying never to take that shot. It's a video game. You're meant to have fun. But if you're trying to be an efficient offense and you're trying to win all the time and score every single time with maximum effectiveness, you're not taking slashing post-up shots with a defender in the paint. You're trying to get that defender out of the paint so that other people can slash, or you can slash if that defender has to sell out on a pick and pop for your point guard, or screen and roll with your point guard taking a three. So your shots at the basket are supposed to be uncontested. So slashing in this game is just generally not ideal, because slashing is for contested twos, which is the last shot in the game you want to take. You'd rather take a high difficulty three than a contested two, specifically because a contested two leads to harder fast break opportunities, where a high difficulty three, if it misses, that point guard is running out anyway. Everybody's on the perimeter running out. But when people are going for rebounds and putting shots up at the basket, that's fast break city. That's bad news. So this is the number one big man build in the game overall. But I am not of the mind that this is the only big man build you can make and be successful. But I do think this is the character, this is the overall best character in the game. It's the overall best pie in the game because this is a pie that literally, if you have your point guard, you can put everybody else on this pie, and your team is awesome. All right, like maybe one more sharpshooter, but run double point guard. Everybody else, 3 point and defense pie, and you're good to go. That build is just tremendously good because there's too much slashing built into it, and it loses virtually zero. In fact, it doesn't lose any defense; it just loses rebounding because the defense is Hall of Fame. The defensive attributes, the interior defense goes to max, which is the most important one. The blocking goes nearly to max. It's 97 versus 99. I don't think that makes a physical difference in 2K at all whatsoever with Hall of Fame rim protector. And the defensive rebound, if you go to 99, goes to 91 versus a 99. Now that is some difference, but not when you include the skill factor. The bottom line is a pure rebounding build is maybe going to get 3 or 4 rebounds versus you, whereas you are getting as many threes as you hit. That's how many more threes you hit than your opponent if you can hit threes and they can't. So if you hit 4 threes a game, that's 12 points. Their 4 rebounds does not equate to your 4 threes if they even get those 4 rebounds. I'm willing to bet that a highly skilled um, glass cleaning lockdown is going to out rebound his opponent no matter what build they have if he's the more skilled opponent. So you can't throw out the skill factor in rebounding. But there's no amount of skill that the interior finisher or the paint beast can acquire to allow them to hit threes and mid-range shots above their attributes. That 65 is the magic number. I think it might even be 60, to be honest with you. Once you have 60, and Hall of Fame badges, you can start greening consistently, but you can't really go below 60. So 65 is what we'll say for here. So Super says, I honestly think the defense playmaking build is better for many of the same reasons. I will get to the defense playmaking build, but I do not think that that build is better than the glass cleaning lockdown. Although, again, I don't think the build is trash. So the other build that I think is actually really good is this build right here, which is the pure post scorer, really, from last year, the shooting and slashing pie. Now, for Pro-Am, we've already established the other build is better, but at 7'3", this build is still athletic enough, and again, the rebounding is a skill factor thing, that if you are skilled enough with this build, you gain a massive offensive advantage for doing a lot of the same things. Now I don't think this is ideal for Pro-Am. However, for twos, for the 1v1 court, this build may be superior if you're skilled enough, because if you're good enough as a post scorer, there's no build that counters you directly. A person can maybe counter you by outplaying you, but they don't automatically counter you, right? It's not like if I have a point guard and I have a pure lockdown on me, most Pro-Am point guards, even at the very highest level, prefer to work around screens because that guy has the athleticism and attributes to catch up even when he makes a mistake, and when he contests with Hall of Fame Intimidator, it's going to lower your percentages, right? Same way as the old badge from last year, defensive stopper. But as a post player at 7'3", there's nothing that stops you. Now in Pro-Am, there's not really enough space and time for post play, and that is a contested 2. However, this build still hits that magic number of 65 when it comes to the 3-point shot. As you can see here, if we were to spec this build all the way out, it does all the same things. Now, I think giving up defense for offense is a mistake for big man. Again, we established that that's not happening with the glass cleaning lockdown. But if you have this build and you're not going to build more than one build, and you primarily play the twos and the ones court, and you also have a Pro-Am team, I imagine you probably still win a lot because you're so skilled at the rebounding element of this game that you can make it work for you. And that's really the only reason I would say to have this build is because you don't only play Pro-Am, you don't only play threes, you also play twos and the 1v1 court and ante-up. And that's why I would even bring this build up to begin with, because it is excellent for those things, and I don't think you need a brand new build to compete in the Pro-Am, because even though you're definitely giving up a lot on the defensive end, just being 7-3 and having skills, if you can hit your three ball consistently, you can make up for what you lose on the defensive end, on the offensive end. It's not like they're going to get every rebound from you over and over and over and over again, right? And again, at 7-3, your interior defense is it's good enough for most things at the basket. It's not like guards are going to be finishing on you on a consistent basis. So I think this is the other meta build, not as meta for Pro-Am and 3v3, but definitely for 2v2 and for 1v1. Very, very strong. And if teams run a post-centric offense, I do think this build could cause serious problems, because if you have to double the post, if he's in takeover and he's eating your big man up, that's going to open up three-point shots as well. And this build is undefendable. Any build that essentially is following the rules of great offense beats great defense, and this might be the only build in the entire game that is that good, that no, that like the defense can be made irrelevant. You know, there you go. Rager says, talk about the shooting defending pie chart. Yeah, that's the first one we talked about. That's the best build in the game, man. Best overall build in the game, and definitely the best center build. So now we're going to move on to power forward. So I'm not going to address the paint beast and the interior finishers, because the thing about those, in fact, let's talk about it real quick. So the thing about those builds is really they can't shoot. And so let's go to the pure slasher first, just to look at it. And we're just going to look at the pure slashing part of it, right? So let's look at the defense for a second. It's an 80 interior defense, vastly inferior to the other build. So you're giving up defense for offense, but but your offense doesn't involve shooting, right? You get a 62 mid-range shot, so that goes up to a 66 without Hall of Fame shooting badges, without Hall of Fame catch and shoot. So you can make that shot, but it's a 2 from a big man that's not in the paint, which is not ideal. And it's not a 3. So there's that, and this 3-point shot with 48. Once you go max wingspan, that's not a consistent makeable shot. And you're giving that up for what? For a 99 standing dunk? Well, you had a 93 standing dunk or whatever, 94 standing dunk with the other build. It's virtually after going to 99. Like 99 versus 94. If your standing dunk is in the 90s and you can't make a standing dunk, you're probably taking a bad shot trying to dunk on people. And quite frankly, if there are 2 people in the paint, that means you have a 3-point shooter open, and you should be finding that guy and making the efficient play. This isn't the have fun with your build video. This is the what's the best build video. And you can definitely have fun with a paint beast, and you can win a lot of games with a paint beast, but you will reach a cap where you're facing teams that are spreading out the floor and flooding you, and you can't spread the floor because your guy is able to just zone off of you, guard the paint, and keep everybody else out of the paint while selling out on pick and rolls. You said glass lock shooter. I don't know what height and position you need Spencer Lane to get a glass lock shooter, but it's the same build. It's basically, this pie. I'm sorry. This pie. This is the best pie in the game overall. So we're gonna move on to power forwards now. The power forward situation is very, very interesting because you do have a lot of flexibility. And I do think the number one overall build at the power forward position is the playmaking defensive build. Now this one I would go for the speed and vertical. So what's the max vert you can get? There you go. So the speed and vertical, I think max vert is important with this build because you can really help out on the rebound. So the reason I think this build might be meta is because this build can come in and help out on rebounds when the other team has that pure interior lockdown and your glass cleaning lock is just relegated to boxing out. This build is athletic enough to swoop in and snatch some of those boards. And if you look at the 3-point shot, it's a 63 right now. But when you get the build up to 97, it'll be a 65. And you don't have the Hall of Fame shooting badges, but I think a 65 with the gold shooting badges is plenty for you to make those shots still. And this build is very similar to the other build. The big difference is this build can rebound and run. Now, rebounding, you generally are passing it up the court, but this build is pretty good in the full court, especially with downhill. Even though the bigs got a little nerf in terms of the speed, that doesn't affect this build because he's at 78. We'll see that this build is at 6'10", and at 6'10" with max wingspan, even 6'9" with max wingspan, this build can do its job, which is to defend all over the court, help grab rebounds, pass with add an extra dimer to your team. If you so choose to play that way. So that's a lot you can have going on with this build, and this is a very strong overall build that you could. This is another build that you can put at all three positions from 2 all the way to 4. This pie right here. I've seen this perform at every level, at a pretty high level. I think this is a totally valid build to use. I'm not specking this out exactly like as I would spec it out. I'm just talking about the overall pies. I think generally when it comes to specking out these builds, it really is about personal preference and play style to a degree, as long as you don't give up your defense or your as long as you don't give up defense, quite honestly. As long as you get the right amount of defensive badges and you can hit an open 3-point shot, your build's probably not bad if you can defend and hit the 3 to some level. And gold defensive badges are still very good in this game. It's not like, Hall of Fame is the only way to go. Super says that dimer and floor general is why I like it at center. That offensive rebound pass out is coming with the Hall of Fame dimer. I do agree with you that is a help, but and it allows you to space out more offensively. I agree with this, to spec out more offensively. Well, I wouldn't say it allows your guard to spec out more offensively. Guards shouldn't do that across the board. I think that's a bad idea. And everybody, please hit that like button if you're enjoying the insight in the video and all that stuff. I appreciate it. Guards should spec out with defense, and because the real reason is that the playmaking badges are not that good, and the slashing badges are not that good. So whatever your build is, I don't think you want more than 15 slashing badges, like maximum, because the slashing badges aren't that good. Those are just badges you'd rather have in defense and shooting. The shooting badges are awesome. The defensive badges are awesome. And the playmaking badges, there are a few great ones, like Dimer, and Quick First Step is great. But then they start to get kind of iffy, like immediately after that. And the slashing badges, Fancy Footwork is excellent. Contact Finisher is excellent. I think Slithery might also be excellent, but after that they start getting iffy, right? They start to get personal preference and stuff like that. Whereas with the shooting, I mean, there are 7 awesome shooting badges that if you can have them at Hall of Fame, then by all means go for it, right? So with shooting, you want, I would say, 18 shooting badges to be a really effective shooter. And I mean making every single open shot. You want to be a threat to make every open shot. That's what you want at your disposal when it comes to shooting. And that would ultimately be why I would put this build a little bit below the defensive shooting build. Now, this build does have the advantage of more athleticism, which can help. But overall, if you're not trying to generate the open three-pointer with your offense, I think you're not being as efficient as you can. I think a lot of people have dreams of 2-point shots that are really your third option, right? I mean, this is in the real NBA too, right? Golden State Warriors, you want an open 3 or a wide open dunk. After that, your offense has compromised for the defense some. The defense has succeeded in some way if you're not generating a wide open 3 or a wide open dunk, right? And you just hope to be good enough at those concession shots to keep your offense balanced. But you're trying to get a wide open 3 or a wide open dunk. You're not trying to get a dunk on somebody or a contested layup or some leaning, difficult shots, 2-point shot. That's a concession. The defense made you do that. They chased you up the 3-point line and they chased you out of the paint. Good on them. You're taking a lower percentage, lower value shot. So the best big man builds are the ones that generate the most threes and defend the most threes and defend the most shots in the paint. And that's one thing I think this build is particularly great at, is it's great at defending the three and great at defending the paint. So I do think this build is really, really effective, and I'm sure a lot of people will find tremendous success with this build. Although I do still think that at both positions, the defending shooting pie is the very best. Now, a lot of people are making paint beasts and stuff like that at this build. I think they had dreams of like dunking on people and being more playmaking oriented and stuff like that. But the bottom line is, if your build allows your man to guard somebody else and say I'm going to leave him open, you have made a mistake. In terms of being the best build. If you decide that's a playstyle you're willing to go for, totally fine. I'm not knocking that at all whatsoever. Play what you want. But this is about the best builds, right? This isn't about your favorite build. This is about the best build. And if you're making if you have a secondary build in this game to make and you don't mind playing something other than point guard, make yourself a defensive shooting build and you will be very happy with the super easy character to play that is also the best character in the game. And that's pretty much it. If you guys have any questions or comments, I'll leave it up for a couple of seconds before I shut it down. I hope this was helpful in some ways. I wanted to experience the game a little bit more before going into bigs because 2K made a lot of promises about the speed changes, and they did come in with that speed nerf, and it is a factor. But if you're a 7-3 big, your role is not to be fast. So the speed is not hurting you. And you are so big that as long as you're in the area, your arms can get in the area. And if your arms are in the area, you're in the area, right? So with your max wingspan and max weight, your character's so big you don't have to move as far, so you don't need to be as fast. Speed is more of a factor on shorter builds. So if your build is short and slow, then you might have some struggles. If your build is short and can't shoot, you're going to have some struggles. But if your build is big, it's like in real life, being big is an advantage in and of itself. And I think overall the 7-3 is the 7-3 glass cleaning lockdown with the shooting at 65 or better is number one. I think that build is effective all the way up to the 2 guard, and the next best one is probably the playmaking defender from 2 to 4, and in its own little niche is the post scorer. If you're good at post scoring, that's the key. That's a high skill build. It is not a build that plays itself for you. So if you put the burden on yourself to develop that skill, you'll be heavily rewarded by being an efficient one-on-one scorer. That's probably the best overall one-on-one scorer in the game. And you can hit threes, and you can still rebound because you're big, and you can still defend because you're big. So I think that build is excellent, but it requires a lot more effort, a lot more skill, and there's sometimes you're going to lose just because of your ratings, and you need to be skilled enough with the slashing, shooting, post-scoring build to make up for what you lose out on your ratings. And most people aren't going to do that. But if you want to follow a guy who does do that, look up Giuseppe Vuitton on YouTube for a guy who just is constantly streaking on the ones courts, has a ton of pro-am wins, plays every game mode at a high level with a post-scoring shooting version of the build. And honorable mention, for the 2s and 3s, you can make the play shot at like 6'11", 7 feet, and the character's tall enough to, get the job done on one end and is skilled enough to be an offensive, just a bucket on the other end. But I don't think that's optimal for most people. I think that's kind of a niche build that's basically making it work, and I honestly couldn't recommend that to somebody over the builds that we discussed. In fact, I would say most people are probably going to find more success with a pure interior build than with that build. Most people are probably just going to lose out on a bunch of rebounds, get layups done against them, and miss open shots and complain about full whites and all that stuff. That's, again, a very specialist oriented build that some guys have gone into, but I wouldn't recommend that. Alright guys, hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching. Peace.